Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's News and Community Spotlights. We were incredibly proud to see that more than half of over 50 games showcased during last month's Summer Game Fest livestream were powered by Unreal Engine. We reached out to some of those making a big splash, including Out of Words, End of Abyss, Infinitesimal, Ill, and Felt That Boxing, to ask them why they chose UE5 for their games and how it enabled them to achieve their goals. Get inspired with a full interview at unrealengine.com/feed. Wildgate, the debut title from Dreamhaven's Moonshot Games, is an action-packed PvP adventure that immerses players in a sci-fi universe. Developed using UE5, it invites players to cruise starships, explore alien ruins, and compete for powerful artifacts in a chaotic and playful environment. Drawing inspiration from classics like Star Wars and Star Trek, as well as elements from Saturday morning cartoons, the game aims to create a sense of wonder and challenge. The team at Moonshot focuses on ensuring that every member could contribute creatively to the project, resulting in a dynamic and engaging space combat sandbox where players leave each session with memorable stories from their adventures. Learn about their processes on the feed. Visit onlineservices.epicgames.com to learn how matchmaking has evolved to dynamic systems using PubNub and Epic Online Services, considering factors like playstyle and social connections for a more personalized gaming experience. Ready to get a little bot crazy? With the release of the new and improved StackoBot sample, we've launched a new contest. Learn new skills and compete for prizes as an individual in the Mega Stacko Jam. Get all the details on how to register on the feed. Join your local chapter to grow, learn, and be inspired. Here are upcoming events to check out. Now for this week's Community Spotlights. Welcome to Bob's Botanarium by Shill Bose, a cozy yet intriguingly secluded spot filled with cats and vibrant plants. While the atmosphere may seem inviting, Bob has deliberately left the only bridge across the swamp in disrepair, ensuring nobody can enter. Shill journeyed into this creative and stylized project utilizing UE5's PCG system, Blender, and Justin Wallace's Environment Artist Survival Kit to gain new experiences in stylized art. You can find more of Shill's work on their art station. 3D environment artist Elliot Carraba has created a stunning winter scene set in a remote mountain weather station titled Frozen Outpost. Inspired by Maxim Dorokov, he utilized procedural modeling in Houdini and Maya to create the outpost, with Easy Fog and Easy Snow by William Fauché to aid in crafting an enhanced atmosphere that provides striking immersion to the loneliness of the building within its environment. The last spotlight of the week is the masterfully sculpted Lenora, Queen of Crows by Sergio Kazov. Inspired by Souls-like games and Gothic aesthetics, Sergio pushed the boundaries in concept development, composition, visual storytelling, and gesture design, using ZBrush, Substance, and Unreal Engine to do it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I am your host, Tina, and today I'm going to be chatting with you a little bit about the Mega Stacko Jam. Yay! We're all so excited to be able to get back into doing jams and game jams and challenges and all that stuff. So we're kicking off with this one in tandem with the release of StackoBot 2.0, which is a incredible game sample project that just came out with the 5.6.1 update that came out on Tuesday. If you haven't already, I highly recommend that you go download that, play around with it, and check it out because you'll need to if you want to join in on the Mega Stacko Jam. Quick disclaimer that I want to make sure I throw at the very beginning of this. This jam is not the Mega Jam, and the Mega Jam is still happening. In fact, it is happening remarkably soon, but I cannot tell you more details at this point in time. But know that this is not a replacement. You're going to be getting another jam quite shortly. So stay excited for that one. This one is specifically for, like I said, with the release of StackoBot. It's going to be a 7-day jam that's specifically focusing on level design, and hopefully you get in there, you get into the sample, you play around, you find some fun tools, and just enjoy some of the great experiences that the content team has put together for you. So, speaking of the content team, let's introduce our guests who are here with us today. Most of you already know and love them, but I'm going to force you to go through and introduce yourselves anyway. So, Aaron, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Aaron. I'm a principal technical artist here at Epic Games, and I work on the tech content team with some very lovely, very clever people. And we build cool samples and fun things. We basically just get paid to mess around in the engine all day, every day, and build cool stuff that we get to share with you, lovely people. We most recently did a refresh of all of the templates, or all of the game templates, I should say, introducing variants. And this is our second thing that we've done for 5.6, which is a complete refresh of StackoBot.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And then, of course, Sam, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a senior technical designer at Epic on the technical content team, like Aaron. And yeah, I was all the things Aaron just said. I also worked on those. I'm a game designer by trade. Did a lot of game design over the years, and I've been irritatingly persistent about refreshing StackoBot for about 2 years now. So I'm really glad that we are out here having refreshed it, and I'm really excited to see what people do with it.
Yeah. I also selfishly am very excited to see what people put together, but most selfishly, I'm excited to see what folks put together for the jam, which, speaking of which, I figure I'll go through, give kind of an overview of the jam itself. I'll talk about the rules, the project requirements, and then, of course, the prizes, because yes, there are prizes. We can't have a jam without prizes. So we'll go ahead and pull up the itch page. There's a lot of different resources available for this, but the Jam itch page is going to be where you register. It's also where you can find the full rules, as well as a quick summary of project requirements, rules, and prizes as well. So we'll walk through that together super quickly, and then we'll go into some cool stuff that's been prepared for you. Just talking a little bit about the sample itself, some different things that are available in it, different ways you can utilize the tools in there, all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and look at the jam stuff here. So the first thing that I want to make sure to point out is that for this jam, all submissions are individual. This is not a team jam. Part of that is because you're going to be working off of the StackoBot sample specifically, so you're not expected to make a full game from the ground up like you would with a mega jam, for example. So because of that, it is individual submissions only, but there's still tons that you could do with it. I believe in you all fully. StackoBot has been fully rebuilt from the ground up for Unreal Engine 5.6. So with that, like I said, we really want to make sure that you get in there, you explore, you have fun, all that good stuff. The project requirements for this jam is that all submissions must utilize the StackoBot 2.0 sample. The game must include custom gameplay that exceeds the gameplay found in Epic Games starter templates, which, just saying, these two wonderful people here worked on those, so they'll be able to know. Just saying, don't try and pull a fast one on us. We'll know. All art assets, there we go, just had to slow it down, in the game must have a material other than default material applied to it, and submissions must be packaged for either Windows, Mac OS, Android, or iOS, the development build. No full unpackaged projects, please. VR and AR projects are also accepted, though we recommend that you build and package for the other versions, just because there's no VR AR criteria specifically. And Android games can be distributed via the Play Store as well. So how to submit. We'll be kicking this off as of right now, so don't worry about that. If you're here, you're part of it. This is the kickoff. You'll need the following information, however, at the time of your submission. So you'll need a team name. While all submissions are individual only, we recommend creating a name for your solo studio during this event. Come up with something fun, because why not? Your name and contact email address, as well as your Epic Games account related email address, if different from your usual contact email. The name of your game, of course. When it comes to naming, make sure to format the name of your zip file with your solo studio name attached, as well as the game name. So an example would just be if my team name was Twisted Tina, then it would be Twisted Tina _ the game that'll win for sure. That would be the name of your submission there. List any content that was created before the jam that was included in the final submission. In case folks are curious, you can absolutely use other assets, anything that you have from Fab. We're not expecting you to make everything for this, especially considering it's solo only and it's 7 days. Just make sure that you're crediting any sellers or artists that you're using assets from. And then submissions must include a link to gameplay footage. This needs to be between 30 to 60 seconds, demonstrating recorded gameplay. The footage will be included in our highlight reel during the Mega Stacko Jam results live stream, and the finalists may be asked to provide a cleaner version or trailer for the game for use in the finalist sizzle reel as well, if you are selected as one of our winners. So something to keep in mind. Don't worry if that's necessary. We'll walk you through it. But just something to keep in mind there. So the other thing that I want to talk a little bit about is judging. This is a bit different, of course, than other jams. It's we're focusing in a bit more specifically on what we're looking for from these submissions, and we want to be very transparent about what those things are and how they'll play into the results. So for judging, qualified submissions will be reviewed and scored on a 1 to 5 point scale by a panel of judges according to the following criteria. First being level design. This goes up to 10 points. So everything else is a scale of 1 to 5. Level design specifically goes up to 10. It is weighted the highest of all of the judging criteria. So keep that in mind as you go through making your submissions. Split between level environment and creative and technical approaches to world creation is how the level design judging is approached. And then the other judging criteria is fun factor, visuals, audio, and then of course, gameplay. So keep these in mind as you're thinking about what you want to make, what you want to submit. And then the last thing I want to go over is, of course, the thing that everybody probably wants to know about, which is the prizes. So we have 2 different categories for this jam. We have a standard and we have a student. For students specifically, if you're curious if you qualify for that, to qualify as a student, the entrant must be enrolled at an accredited institution, whether that be full-time, part-time, distance learning, or at a physical establishment, doesn't matter. You just have to be enrolled at an accredited institution. And this does also include those that are currently on summer break or awaiting the next semester or resuming your studies or anything like that. If during eligibility checks through the judging process, a student entry is found to not be eligible as a student for whatever reason, you'll just be moved over to the non-student category. So you won't be disqualified if there's a technicality, and we'll make sure to reach out to you to let you know as well. But if we find any falsification of a student entry, then you would be disqualified in that case. But just don't do that. Just don't do that. You'll be fine. With that in mind, the top 3 prizes for both standard and student is the same across both. So the things that all winners will get, no matter what, is 200 Fab credits from Epic Games, 1 Epic Games and/or Unreal Engine merchandise from Epic Games, 1 featured highlight on the official Unreal Engine blog, and 1 feature in the form of the Mega Stacko Jam sizzle that will come out afterwards. The thing that varies between first, second, and third is the cash prizes. So third place gets $250, second place gets $500, and first place gets $1,000. And again, these prizes are consistent across both standard and student categories. So there will be 6 winners overall. And that's it. That's everything I want to talk about for the Mega Stacko Jam. If you're interested in learning more, we'll post up the link to this itch page. On here, there are also links out to the full rules. Make sure you go through that full document and know everything you need to about the jam itself, the requirements that we're expecting, all that good stuff. And of course, have fun. That's the most important part of all of this. If you have questions about the jam, if you qualify as a student or just other questions in general about how it might work, please make sure to post those in the chat here. I'll try and answer them as I can. We do also have a post on the Epic developer community that is just for this as well. So you can still reach out to us even after the kickoff is going, of course, to ask your questions and get them answered. The last thing that I want to mention before I hand it off to our wonderful guests for today is we are also going to be offering feedback and support and tips and tricks as it goes along. So next Monday and next Wednesday, we'll have on Aaron and then Sam on our Epic for Indies Discord server to give some general feedback and advice and stuff like that. So if you're interested in getting any of that,
brutally tear apart.
Oh yes, exactly. The most cruel.
You can't say
Oh wait,
that.
we're meant to pretend to be nice, aren't we?
I'll get really personal.
It's going to be just judging of you as an individual. And
so if you think you can handle it, then you can come to those sessions too. And we'll post about those so that you know the time and the place. But with that, I guess I'll hand it over to y'all now because you're the ones with the meat of this, the stuff to show about the sample.
Aaron, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. We'll talk about some stuff. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll just run through the sample because we haven't really shown it off yet. We had a blog announcement and obviously the page came up. But yeah, outside of that, this is kind of like our first time that we're really getting to talk about it publicly, which is really nice.
Sample with live reveal. Commentary.
Yeah. So if we switch to my screen. So I think the first thing you're going to want to do is download the sample if you haven't already. So to do that, you'll need to go over to fab.com and find the StackoBot sample. Really easy to do. Just type in StackoBot in and it will come up. And then you just need to add that to your library. And then from the launcher, you'll need to download it. A couple of things to keep in mind with this is that you do need to have a computer that is powerful enough to run Unreal.
That would help.
Yeah, don't try doing it from your 12-year-old laptop. You're going to need something with some power behind it to do it. But when you do download it, again, depending on your computer specs, you can drop the scalability settings. So if you are running on less powerful hardware, the first thing you should do is when you open the project is set the scalability on your project, which you can do when you open it in here. We have, with pretty much all of our projects, we do open them into an empty level. So you shouldn't have any performance problems actually just opening the sample because that's just a blank map. And then once you do that, go over to your scalability, viewport scalability, and then just set that to whatever you think is going to be appropriate for you when you open up.
It still looks very pretty at low detail. We did a lot of work there.
One of the key things with this StackoBot is that it scales all the way down to Android. So you can run it in the mobile preview if you want to. You can drop the scalability, so it should run on a lot of devices on a lot of platforms. So you should be fine from that standpoint. That being said, if you've got it on high or epic, it is still going to be running Lumen and Nanite and all of that good stuff to really make it shine. So that stuff does come with an overhead. So if your computer can support that, then that's great. But if not, then just make sure you're dropping that scalability setting down. So go over to your launcher, find the project and create it. The next big thing to make sure you're doing is that you're doing it for 5.6 because any of the builds preceding that are going to give you the older version of StackoBot. So if you download it, you open it up and you're not seeing this map or this map, which is a big cloudy kind of vista, then you've got the older version of the project, which will be kind of like a reddish landscape with green buildings. So that is the old version. You want the new version. So just make sure you've got 5.6 downloaded and then you create the project for 5.6. It's not enough to just upgrade the old one to 5.6. You need to actually download the version specifying 5.6. I would show you in the launcher, but my launcher has a bunch of projects in it that I can't let other people see, so I won't open that one. So you'll have to just visualize the launcher from that view. So let's explore the main project, and I'll do a little bit of switching back and forth between Sam, who can explain some of the design stuff a little bit more than me. But you'll be greeted with this main screen, which is blank. Again, this is actually really good practice to do generally. You should never have your project open straight into your game map. If you're doing that, that's a bad idea. Make sure it opens into an empty level just because it makes things much easier and safer for you to be able to actually open up the project if there's ever an issue with that main map. So that will be in empty. We've got our main map content in here. So we have StackoBot, which is all of the content for the project. We have the splash screen. So if you want to change your splash screen, you can update those image files there. They're included as PNG and also UAsset. We've added a developer commentary section. This isn't specifically for the actual game, which was why we've kept it segmented out. We've actually added developer commentary to all of the map. So it's filled with these little speech bubbles that kind of give you a bit more information and a bit more direction to go if you're trying to investigate that world. And then our actual map that you play through is called level_StackoBot. We've also got a main menu map as well, which is what it will load into when you package the project out. So that's another key one to remember if you're building your world. Please make sure you don't just package out the default version of StackoBot that ships the R level. Package your own level instead. So you can either do that in the project settings under maps and modes, and you can choose the game default map and either set that to be your level, so it just opens straight into your level that you've made, or make sure that you update the main menu transition to open up your level instead of R1. So that's a key one. We'll talk about that in a minute, how to go through that if you're unsure how to do it. So that's a lot of waffle about just opening the project.
If you want to modify the main menu as part of your jam submission, go wild, do fun stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now we've got our main game world. I've got my UI scaled up quite a bit, so I'll just hide that for a minute while we just explore the actual level. This is our StackoBot level. So the way that it's designed is that we've got our starting point over here. We have a central hub area over here, and then we have some small spokes going off that take you on various small paths. The objective is for you to press all of these buttons, which activate these lights in sequence, and then once you've activated all 4 lights, you open up the main light in the middle, and then you can transition out. You don't have to do this for your project. You can do a completely different design path if you want to. You can have it just be get from point A to point B. That's absolutely fine. You don't need to do a spoke design. That is just that's just what we did as an example. You can just do a full linear platforming path if you want to do that. So we'll just drop it, do a quick play. I won't do the whole thing because it takes a minute or two to actually go through and play the whole level. But I will kind of talk you through the couple of the features that we've got. So we've got our third-person character, our Stackobot. They have a kind of a dynamic jump, so you can tap it to get a small hop. You can press and hold it to get a longer jump. And we've also got a bit of slightly fancier camera work in there as well. So when you jump, the camera doesn't actually move with the player until they exceed a particular height threshold, and then it will pop up to meet them. Here we have our spawner. So we have a spawn pad set up. So if your character happens to die a terrible, terrible death for whatever reason, you'll get spawned back to that particular pad, and it will transition you back in as well, so that you can start. We've placed these in a few different areas in the world, and again, we encourage you to do the same. Give players checkpoints for them to get through, so that they can get respawned back to the main area. You can modify the size of area of effect of this spawn pad, and I encourage you to adjust that as you need to, so that the player doesn't miss one by accident. We've also got a collectible here, which you can see as a small coin. We actually save this information as well. So it's got a very simple save mechanic that stores the number of coins you pick up. And this is async saved whenever you hit a checkpoint as well. So you've always got the latest number of coins that you've picked up in the world. Then we've got a couple of other features as well. So we've got these nice little physics platforms that have a really nice kind of bounce to them when you jump up and down on them. And if we carry on through here, we have our first puzzle. So again, our character has a main action, which is this grab mechanic, so that they can use a physics handler to pick up items in the world, and you can use them to stack your thing. Hence Stackobot. We got the name. We got the name in there somewhere. And then we've got some simple interactions with that. So you can drop these physics items on buttons, and then you can have these buttons trigger particular actions. So in this instance, we've got a little trigger there to kind of create some stuff. We have got sound in there as well. I've turned off sound just because I'm going to be waffling over this entire demo. You can see that we've got our small message bubbles as well, which pop up so that you kind of get a little more insight into how these work. Ooh, AI baddie just hit me. The AI won't kill you, but they can knock you off the platform. Oh, that was a perfect demonstration of that happening. So you do be careful with that. Again, you don't have to put AI into your game, but it's a great way of just adding a small amount of extra interest in there. You can use the AI characters that we've built for you if you just want a nice simple one to do that. If you do add AI, we do recommend that you don't just drop the AI characters into the world. Use a spawner. Again, there's an example of this in the map. It just makes streaming a bit easier to handle. When maps get really big as well, you ideally don't want to be putting skinned assets in there, physical characters in there. So you can kind of see
spawn in when you get close, so you won't even notice.
So we've got one of our buttons activated, which was the one at the top there. You might also notice that our AI have some debug text in there. So we've left that in there just so that you can kind of see the AI logic that it's running through. That automatically gets stripped out when you package the project out, as long as you've done it under shipping. So again, just keep that in mind. We've got some small world interactable items as well. So these aren't, kind of AI characters, but they will hurt you if you touch them. We've hopefully signposted those well enough, so you can see these sparking cables here. If you touch them, they'll give you a bit of an ouchie, and that hurts.
If you do want
Sorry,
Say
guys.
if you do want to set them up to actually damage the player, if you destroy the actor that the player is, that will trigger the respawn functionality. Like when you get destroyed, you're just hitting the kill Z plane at the bottom of the map when you get knocked off. So same logic applies to things that hurt you. So if you want to have StackerBot be more vulnerable, go ahead, be mean to the robot.
Yeah. Now, Sam, I'm going to show off the hack that I put in. Are you okay with me ruining the cog puzzle that you
Please ruin the
lovingly
cog
put together?
puzzle.
So we've also put a cheat in as well. Cheating in design just makes things a bit easier if you want to get around. So if you press L, you'll actually switch to a fly around camera that lets you just pop up anywhere, and then you can press L again, and you'll just drop back into the world at that point. So if you are, kind of wanting to just explore a particular part of the world, or you want to cheat or anything like that, you can do so. We again have got a couple more different physics puzzles in here. So we've got this one that kind of will bounce you, kind of out. Ooh, that's gonna get me. And we've got these wobbly bridges as well. So we tried to put a bunch of physics stuff in there because physics is just, it's just fun. Adds a bunch of extra stuff to it. So I'm just going to skip this one and kind of go through just so that we can show off one of the other things that Sam added in. Ooh, drop the character in.
Very subtle Unreal branding we have there.
you can hardly look for Unreal branding. So we've also got a demonstration of how you can add destruction in there as well. So if you want to put some destruction elements into the level, then please feel free to do that, and you can use this as a reference on how you can go and set that up. And then we've also got our lovely moving platforms, which kind of can take you all over.
I love your nifty VFX you put on the spline. I hadn't noticed that before.
Yeah, that was a late last minute addition to give people a bit of an idea of where those paths are going to take them. That's actually just a Niagara system that runs a ribbon along the spline of the path. So yeah, and then the world has been built in a kind of interesting way as well. Oh, I want to do the extra bit as well, just to make sure you've got this in your head when you're building your cool level that we will be very critical of.
Deeply critical. You can tell we're cruel and unusual people.
So one of the other things we've added as well is just a 2D mode. As well. So conceivably, you could build your entire level as a 2D level, which Sam would absolutely love, and I'm sure give you extra marks for if
Please,
you did.
bribe me with your 2D designs.
But you can put kind of 2D / well, I guess it's 2.5D technically because we do still have depth. But you can switch in and out of this mode as well. So it kind of allows you to kind of like break up gameplay with some more kind of old school style gameplay. Sam's added some really nice features in there as well. So kind of showing how you can use post-processing to adjust the camera and things like that.
We have destructible platforms.
Small breakable platforms.
I like breaking things. You may notice that. But
yeah.
With my work, things need to explode.
I am noticing a theme. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've added a few different ways of doing things as well. So we've got these physics platforms, and we've got movable platforms as well that operate on a spline. We've also got these little bounce pads as well, and also these wind effects as well. So they all practically do the same thing, but we just wanted to give something that gave you a bit more variety depending on the kind of level you were building. So we've tried to give you a bit of a toy box of content when you're building these levels.
You can find all of them under physics elements in the blueprints folder of the StackerBot content folder. Everything's either a game element or a physics element. All the physics stuff kind of lives together. So, and they're all like implemented pretty simply, so you can see how they work.
The way you've got that exit on 2D gives me real anxiety that it's not going to trigger.
It's almost like it failed to consistently trigger for maybe a month before I fixed it. We have the nice. I love these tilting girders. These are some of my favorite things.
I'm going to cheat to get up here again, just to speed
If
this
you want to
demo up.
use the developer commentary as part of your fun jam level, please do. Feel free to add fun speech bubbles telling us what you did, or having characters speak to Stackerbot, or whatever you'd like to do. It's like a neat little feature, and we'll
I
definitely
really
not judge you on the quality of your writing. It's okay.
I'm gonna don't judge us on the quality of our writing, please. I make models and artwork. I don't do writing. But yeah, I think I really love the comment bubbles. Actually, I want to try and add those to some of our other samples and possibly even our templates as well, because they're really nice kind of in-game kind of showcases. Last thing as well I want to show off is our objective system. So you can kind of see it here. You can press tab to bring up the UI. It will automatically pop up whenever you get an icon or if you finish an objective. So we've added it again. It's really simple. We've tried. You can get so kind of so complex and so extra with some of this stuff. So we've really tried to make a very simple implementation of some of the features that you'd want. This objective system is one of those. So we wanted a way of kind of like giving the player a guide on what to do and where to go. These objectives you can add really easily into the world. They're tied into our interaction component that we've created. And again, just because we've done it in a particular way doesn't mean it's the be-all end-all way of doing it. And if you were doing a more advanced system, you might even want to go down a completely different path. But the way that we've done it is nice, easy, and quick, which is kind of like the focus of this sample for this particular thing. So you can see all of our lights have lit up. I'm going to jump in. It transitions to a different camera. It turns around. We get a load of confetti bounce up, and then the level transitions out. Now we're back at the main menu again. So we have a nice kind of transitional point we can go in and we can replay if we want to. So that's the level. We've created it again so that it's nice and easy to use. We've tried to componentize as much stuff as we can, so it makes it really easy for you to build your own level, your own world, using both the content that we've made and also content that you build yourself to create something really interesting and unique. So I can carry on talking. I've been talking for a while though. Sam, did you want to go over any of the design stuff?
Yeah, I think what I might do is just do a bit of a guide to how to set up some of this stuff. I think that might be useful, like camera transitions, things like that, because that way people will not be scared to use them. We were relatively conservative with that stuff, but I think it's worth trying. So I will share my screen. Come on, let me share my screen.
This is awesome.
One of these things is my screen. There we go. I have too many windows open. All right.
While we're waiting, actually, I did see a couple of questions that I wanted to address super quickly, just about like what is the theme for the jam? How extensive can the gameplay changes be and stuff like that? The theme for the jam is literally just Stackerbot. What we want you to do is we want you to play around with the template. We want you to play around with the sample, but that's it. You can take it in whatever direction you want. You can add in as much gameplay as you want. You can alter as much gameplay as you want. You can add in other characters. You can add in new assets. We just want you to use the sample project as a baseline, something to build off of. But otherwise, you can go as crazy as you want.
If you want to go Shadow the Hedgehog and make Stackerbot with guns, I guess you can do that. You want to do an edgy Stackerbot, but yeah, it's like run wild. We've given you all these fun tools to play with. Please play with them.
And don't feel like you need to make the level exactly, kind of the way that we've done it. It doesn't need to be, kind of like a cloud underlayer with, these floating islands. You can do, kind of whatever design you want, right? And that's absolutely fine. This is just an example level that we've put together.
So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the camera setup stuff, just to. So is my screen showing up? Can I?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit. Okay. So talk a little bit about level design in StackerBot. So this is a world partitioned level. Recommend doing that if you're doing anything of scale. And then it's built with level instances. So pretty much all of these things are level instances. So in this case, I'm going to talk about how I set up this 2D bit, which is in a level instance. If you haven't used level instances, it's a really great way to sort of compartmentalize your content within a world partitioned map. So we have all these areas, both individual areas and then more generic areas that you can just drop into your map as is. And then if you want, you can duplicate, drag around, have as many as you want. And because they're instanced, you can have as many as you want and go crazy. And they're all under the max level instances folder. So we have the intro area, the cliff climb, sub area B and C, and the side scrolling bit. But then we also have a bunch of sort of more generic islands that you can just use straight up. So level instances, they're your friend. So for the 2D bit, we're going to edit the level instance side scrolling. And I'll show you how we do the camera transition. I'm going to slow down my editor camera because it's real fast. So we created a thing called a game camera volume. I think that's what it's still called. Yes, it's game cam volume. And that is a pretty simple blueprint actor with a trigger radius. It's a sphere trigger. And there are a couple things in there. The first thing you should know is you can set it watch camera state to switch to. So there's a side view. There's also third person locked, which I'll talk to in a second, and then third person default. And then you can set them to deactivate and exit, which means they only fire off once. Once you exit them, it just removes the trigger from the world. Or reset and exit, which means it returns to the standard third person view when you exit. So for the side scrolling, it's not doing either of those. And it's also aligning the player on entry because you're switching to side scrolling controls. So it's 2D. If you're not aligned with the platforms, you're just going to run off the world. And then that's not going to be super fun. And that just aligns you to the position of the Y position of the game camera volume actor. So all you need to do in this case is all I did was I said, okay, when you enter this trigger, bring up what we want to do is switch you to the side scrolling camera. And then to exit, there is another one called the exit volume, which is a massive trigger. And that just means that when Aaron jumped off, he hit this trigger, it transitioned back to the third person default camera. This one does not reset and exit, it does not align the player, it does nothing but switch you back to third person and just make sure that you are in third person camera when you should be. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the third person locked camera, which is, I think a lot about game cameras. It's kind of my thing or annoying obsession based on how well you know me. So for third person locked camera, that allows you to do, I will demonstrate it in a second, the sort of, if you played a 3D platformer and it switches to you're still playing in 3D, you're not in side scrolling, but it switches to a more locked angle to demonstrate something, to pull back the camera and show space off. You can do it using this. You just tell it third person locked and you align to the player. You don't want to align the player, but you do want to potentially set a preset angle. If not, it'll use the angle that you entered the camera you were in when it entered locked camera, which can be useful. But if you want to use the preset angle, that's what that arrow is for. So you can go beep, beep, and tell it what angle you want the camera to face when you enter it. In this case, what we're going to do is, I'm going to demonstrate it. Is it transitions you into a locked camera when you're riding on that platform. So I'm going to be like Aaron and shoot my way over. I really do love this drone because like any level designer, I hate playing my own work. This lets me do that.
One of those things as well, where I think I added it like 2 days before we wrapped up. And I'm like, why didn't I add this sooner?
I was like, why playtest our work? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this thing, see if I can catch the platform. I missed it. I'm smart. And now I'm going to die and respawn. So I'm going to catch that elevator but there you can see the respawn pad in action. There I am. So I'm going to wait for that platform to return, which it will. It's going to come back, and then I'm going to hop on it. That platform got a lot faster than it used to be. Come on, platform, come back.
I had a delay on that, so that should have given you a couple of seconds before it went.
StackerBot 3.0, we're going to. Let's see, is it going to come back? Maybe it isn't. Let's see, let me fly over there and take a look. So the other place, actually, if this is not the right place to demo it, yeah, it seems to not want to come back. So I'm just going to pop over here. The other place we can demo it actually is up here. Watch Sam come back from something not going how he planned in a live demo. So you may remember Aaron demonstrating our nifty destructible roof. So one thing we do is we use a game camera volume here to do that, to pull the camera back so it looks down the thing while you are going through the roof destruction, and then transitions back to normal camera afterwards. And that is one of these. It is a game camera volume in the level instance pointing straight down. Look at that. So that's exactly the same. This one, again, doesn't reset and exit. It just switches to an interior camera reset volume you fall into. So if you want to do all kinds of nifty stuff with the camera, this is a way to do it. At this point, I will probably stop screen sharing and talk about other stuff. But you can do a lot with the camera, and feel free to modify it further. If you want to see how the camera is set up, as we'll talk about this now, blueprints, camera manager is the player camera manager. It's part of the Unreal Gameplay Framework. It is set in a player controller, and that is this thing. So this is the basic camera logic. It just says, hey, what camera mode do we want to be in? Call this set camera state event, and then it uses a switcher on an enum to run a bit of logic to transition the camera. And then the side-scrolling camera itself is just in Blueprint Update Camera. If you want to see how I wrote it and modify it, add features to it, that's all in Blueprint Update Camera. And all that does is do this logic to determine where the camera goes. And then the output of Blueprint Update Camera is this return node. And this is in any player camera manager. So I'm using existing Unreal functionality. You just feed where you want the camera to be, what rotation you want, and what FOV you want. And if you set this return value to true, it'll use that. If it's false, it'll use the default camera. So in this case, if the camera state is side view, it returns it to true and sets it as a side view camera. So if you would like to modify the camera or see how it works, just go into the camera manager.
Sam, sorry, were you showing a blueprint right there?
I was. Was it not streaming? Ooh.
It did not show the blueprint, unfortunately.
Let me do that
I'm
again.
so sorry.
That's fine. Let me do that again. It was, let's see, is it doing it now? Can you see it now? Or is it still not streaming? Let me try something. Oh, I see what it is. It's the joy of. There we go. Now you should be able to see a blueprint. Let me do that whole thing again. So
there we go. Sorry about that.
That's fine. The magic of live internet streaming. So to see how that all works. So StackoBot, blueprints, camera. The game camera volume is this blueprint. This is the trigger that sets the camera however you want it to be. It's all pretty simple. It's just running on enter, on exit when you enter or exit the trigger, and based on what camera state you want, uses a little bit of logic that it feeds to. So I'm going to do it better the second time. The camera manager. This is the player camera manager. This is a standard part of the Unreal Engine gameplay framework, like player controller, game instance, game state, all that kind of stuff. It is set in the player controller. In this case, I've created a custom one called BP Cam Manager. And so the logic for switching cameras is this is what that trigger calls, event sets camera state. And you just feed it the camera state, and it uses a little bit of a case switcher based on an enum to determine the logic for how that works. So if you want to modify any of that, feel free. And then if you want to look at how the 2D camera works, Blueprint Update Camera is your friend. Blueprint Update Camera is this thing. And that knows what the camera is meant to be looking at, which will be StackoBot. And I just do a bit of logic based on that to get its location, and then work out where I want the camera to be to give us a 2D camera. Much like Aaron's 3D camera, I trace down, so I only move the camera when you go above a certain Z height, so it's not constantly moving every time you jump. I also use it to add a dead zone for left and right movement, so it doesn't scroll every time you move. You have a little bit of wiggle room before the camera starts scrolling. And then all that outputs here at the return node, which I feed it the new camera location rotation. The FOV I just leave set. And if this value is true, then it uses these camera settings. In this case, the camera state is side view. Let's use these settings. If not, it uses the default camera settings. Blueprint Update Camera comes with the Player Camera Manager. It's not something I created. So if you want to override the camera in your own things or modify how we do it in Stackabot, that's exactly how we do it. It's relatively simple to use. Feel free to go in and monkey with my camera. I would love to see what you do with it. And then the locked off camera is even simpler while I'm in there. All the locked off camera is doing is setting some camera settings differently. So I'm setting the view pitch, min max, your min max, these are standard camera settings. And then I'm setting the camera offset and making it lag a whole bunch. So you get this like, it doesn't snap to the position. It's nice and gentle. And then if you can have a little bit of wiggle with the pitch and yaw without really getting off the locked settings. Feel free to change any of those to do whatever you'd like with them. But very easy to use. So at this point, I will stop streaming again and transition back to Aaron to talk about some other stuff.
So I figured I'd go over the objectives because they're quite a nice way of, kind of like managing the player expectation and what you want them to do. You don't technically need an objective. You can just throw in the level transition and just set it to active. So this is the platform that we've got in the middle. So you'll see inside the actual Blueprint actor here, we've got BP_portal, and that's got a BPC_interaction handler. And then we have basically the activation count, which is the number of things that it needs in order to activate. The trigger references will automatically get populated, so we don't really need to do anything about that. And then whether it gets added as an objective is under this section here, objectives. So basically you mark it as an objective. You can say which index you want it to be. So that's going to be a list order of what objective you want. And then you can basically mark some text to say what the objective actually is. A simpler version of this is our buttons. So the buttons are the triggers, which will kind of set the interaction point. So on these buttons, we have an actor that we're going to call this event on. So again, we're trying to avoid casting and things like that where possible. So basically, when you press this button, it's going to trigger on the interaction component that action. So for this one, it's the lamp and the portal. So when we press this button, we've got a reference to that thing. We're going to go to this button here, which our light, which has the interaction handler. This activation handler or interaction handler has an activation count of 1 on the light and then a count of 4 on the portal. So that basically means that we need 4 things to activate to trigger that central portal, and then we need 1 thing to activate on the light in order for the light to activate. So when we land on that button, it gets that actor, and again, we're not casting, so we don't know what particular type of actor it is. We're checking to see if that actor has the interaction handler component. And if it does, then we're calling a generic event dispatcher on that particular actor. There's loads of different ways to do this. So you can also do this via inheritance. So you can create like an interaction base class, put the logic on there, and then add it that way. We did it on the interaction way because it was the way that it was done in the original Stackobot. We wanted to try and preserve that method of doing it because it's a valid way of doing it. So basically the interaction handler has an objective. So this one's marked as is objective. Again, this is useful because sometimes we want a button interaction to not be an objective. So this one, for example, when we press on this button, we want to activate this object. So our button activates this moving platform, which again, if we click on, it will show us that particular actor. And then this interaction handler is not an objective. right? So this is our ways of kind of differentiating between key things that we want the player to do and key things that we don't need the player to do, but they can do. So all you need to do to add one to your level is drop a trigger. And again, you can do your own trigger on this using the logic that we've provided, or you can do your own logic. But you add a trigger into the world, you link the thing that you want it to trigger, and then inside the thing that you have, you need the interaction handler, which again you can add to any blueprint, and then from that blueprint, just grab it here. We have this trigger complete interaction handler and trigger reverse, which again, if we want to be able to undo the trigger, we need to have a reference to that as well. So these two events we pull from this interaction handler component. So you can add them here if you want to make your own interaction event. And then the actual interaction logic itself, we can go in and we can edit that if we want to see how it works. Again, it's very simple. It just has an event that it pulls from BPI underscore gameplay, which is our event dispatcher. And all it does is it calls trigger complete on those things if it can. So basically, if I have enough of the trigger references inside my activation counter, then I can call trigger complete. And if it's an objective, so it is objective, then all we do is we pass the objective payload, which is basically just what the objective is called and whether it's completed or not. And in the game mode, we call update objective. So that just sends that information over. The game mode will then send that information to the HUD so that it can then update from there. So that's basically how it works. And then we have the untrigger, which basically checks to see if it's removed and then updates the gameplay objective if we do. I don't think we have any gameplay objectives that you can undo. They're always one direction. So basically, once you press that button, the trigger happens, and then it's good to go. There's never an undo.
Yeah,
but you could definitely do that if you want to.
Be weird.
Unobjective a thing, but you can if you've got a custom design in mind that you would like to do.
You can be very granular with objectives. We weren't. We kept it pretty light. But if you want to sort of, if you're introducing a new mechanic, say in your jam game, and you want to tutorialize it a bit, the objective system is a really good way to do it. You can literally go step by step through it using the objective system.
So we had 5 objectives total. Basically, press the 4 buttons and then activate the portal, and you kind of get the 5th one just by doing all 4. And then obviously you go through the portal to end the game. So you can add these in. Again, we've got them built into a bunch of the blueprints that we've made, which you can see inside this level. For the interaction handler, you can add the interaction handler to your own blueprints, or you can build your own system if you want to. That's also, cool. So feel free to do that. So the next thing I think that's worth talking about is kind of like building your level. So I'll give a quick overview of kind of like starting, and then Sam, if you want to kind of take over and do some design stuff, that'd be cool. So if you're building your level, you can do it completely from scratch. You can augment the one that we've provided and kind of like add to it and change it and modify it. That's also fine. If you are going to build your own level from the start, though, I would recommend using the empty open world as your starting point. The open world one will give you a big landscape, which is also fine if you want to use that, but empty open world will give you a blank canvas, but with the world partition external actors all set up for you. So I would create an empty open world, and then I would bring some lights in. To do that, you've got a few different options. You can copy and paste them from the one that we've set up. Also, we do have the environment light mixer, which allows you to just press these buttons and it will add all of those components for you. So if you want skylight, directional light, volume, fog, all of that stuff, it will add all of those things in for you to kind of get you started. I'm going to paste in from my level. So the base that we've kind of started with, again, it's nice to have some kind of like background stuff, but that can be quite time consuming to build and not very rewarding from a design perspective because it's completely non-interactable. So you won't get many points for background interaction, but it's also, it's a nice thing to have. I've kind of built this very simple base environment to start with. So we've stylized the clouds using the standard cloud material that's found in the engine. And then I've also done a bit of kind of hacky trickery with this base layer to kind of show you different ways of creating cool environments. So
You
this
say hacky
base...
trickery, I say tech art magic.
So this base is actually a landscape. And again, one of the things I wanted to try and show with this level is just because a thing is called a thing doesn't mean it can only be used in that instance. So this is a landscape, but actually all the landscape is a contiguous, kind of a joined series of quad meshes that we can use to kind of like optimize our world. So it's split into these squares so that we can cull it nice and effectively. But the landscape is something that we want to be able to paint, so we can kind of like modify it in that way. So just because it's a landscape doesn't mean it can only be used for landscapes. You can use it for other stuff as well, like clouds. And one of the nice thing about the landscape tool is that it has landscape grass. Which you can use for grass, or you can use it for cloud cards, which is what I've done here. So all this is a landscape with some grass cards on it that are set to look like clouds. So you can do that. You get quite a nice effect from it. So it's a nice kind of like base layer for you to work from. I've got it kind of tied into the lighting system, so you get some nice kind of like time of day changes. So if you want to adjust your time of day to get the kind of nicer, kind of like beauty hours that you get on those sunset and sunrises, you can do that as well. And the lighting will kind of adjust and update as you need. Though remember, if you've got a harsh angle on your sunlight, you will be paying an additional rendering cost on there because that beautiful time of day costs more because shadows, the way that shadows work. So this just gives you a nice setup. You don't have to use it. You can use something completely different, and I encourage you to experiment with that. And then, as Sam said, the world's been split up into level instances, which you'll find inside maps and level instances. So we've tried to design these as kind of like, again, like a toy chest of just different bits and pieces that you can snap together. So you can drag and drop these islands into the world and then use them to kind of create an interesting design, and then also build your own. So you can kind of go in and kind of take some of these components. There's kind of logical connection points that you can kind of go in and just stomp them in like that, and you can kind of drop a couple of these different ones in. So we'll take these cogs, put those over there, maybe bring them up so that they're accessible, which might be a good idea. And then, you can take some of the smaller islands that we've got in there to give you some little set pieces or some areas where the player can kind of go off and explore, like a smaller space and stuff like that.
Absolutely consider making your own versions of these on top of the ones that we've made, so you have a nice toolkit to build out all your levels.
Yeah,
You don't need to stick with what we made.
Yeah, this isn't something you need to, to just use as like a standalone thing. We very much encourage you for the jam to build. But it's just a way of kind of like showing you, hey, look, this is a really nice way of building because it allows you to get really kind of like free and creative with kind of how you're building your environments and things like that. So kind of go in and drop some stuff like that. And then once we've built the level, right, we can that kind of gets us a lot of the way there, and then we can take our blueprint into our game elements, drop a spawn pad into the world, so that we've got a nice consistent starting point. Mark that starting point is start, just because we are expecting multiple spawn pads in the world. We aren't going to implicitly know which is the first one we want the player to start from, so we've got a toggle there to let you know which one you start from. We've also got an arrow as well, so that you know which direction is going to be the starting point for us, and then we can press play, and our character drops in, and we can kind of start testing the level that we've built. So because of the way that we've designed the levels, a lot of the content that kind of joins it together, you'd put on a separate layer. So you can kind of see we've got some interaction elements here, but we're not necessarily got everything that we need to be able to get to all of the different places. So a lot of the gameplay elements you'd want to put on top. But we've tried to keep these as small segmented sections, just so you've got a nice starting point to work from. So you can kind of go through this and kind of build your level. But if, let's say, you're struggling to get up to this point, you might need to go in and start adding some extra points, like for.
And there's nothing wrong with putting stuff in your main world map, like anything objective or gameplay oriented. Probably fits better there anyway, unless it's going to be completely confined to your level instance. And with objectives and stuff, you generally want them to all be in the same map anyway.
You can go and add some little physics platforms to get us up to this top area, which will be nice. I'll add some of these little ones which have a much weaker physics constraint, so they're a bit wobbly to get onto. You can kind of do stuff like that. And you could even add some, where is it in PCG? I think it's in PCG. No? Coins. Even add some coins in there as well, to give the player something to go in and collect. So that, we've kind of built it in a way where you can kind of just drop loads of stuff down. Please do feel free to use all of the stuff in the toy box. But yeah, it's the jam will be about how you go past what we've provided and add to and all of that stuff. There's a level. You can do some cool stuff.
Ship it. So I'll do a little guided tour of some of the stuff we've included in our toy box. So yeah, I will share. I'll try and share my whole screen this time. There we go. And so let me give you a little tour of what we have for you to play with already. So we have most everything that is not straight up environment art will be found under the blueprints folder. So I already kind of showed you what was in the camera folder, but if you go into character, there you'll find StackerBot, you'll find the drone that you can switch to with the L key, the player controller for StackerBot, even the curve for the jetpack. So if you want to make the jetpack work differently, you can modify it in the StackerBot blueprint, or you can just modify the curve and see what happens. Beyond that, framework, you probably don't have to mess with too much, but that's got the game mode, it's got the game instance. That's all your sort of stuff that manages the game over the top. One thing worth pointing out is in the game instance is where you have things like when you package the game and you play it, it plays music, but not when you're playing an editor, because you don't want to drive people completely insane while they're playing. That is managed in the game mode and the game instance. So you can just check if it is a package, if I can find out where we put it. I remember which one it's in. There we go. So yeah, if it's packaged, if it's packaged for distribution, we do not enable the intro sequence, or we enable the intro sequence. So you get a nice little sequencer pan around the level. Otherwise, you do not. And it's the same with the music. We do the same thing, so you don't slowly go crazy. The HUD is also in here, and then if you want to play the StackerBot's HUD, feel free. It's all pretty self-explanatory. It's just, you got your pause menu, you've got the game interface, you've got the touch interface. If you are playing mobile, that's all handled there. If you would like to see the touch interface and you are not playing in mobile, you can just plug this default into there, and then if you go into project settings, you just need to set mouse control to, say, use mouse for touch. Check that to true, and then you can play using your mouse as if it was a touch screen. If you don't want to work in the actual mobile emulator, or you want to see how it works in mobile, Stackabot is fully designed to work in mobile. It will run really nicely. Most of the key stuff, however, is in game elements. So those cool rotating cogs that Aaron was showing off, those are here, BP cog, and you can do all kinds of fun stuff with them. You can make them bigger, you can make them smaller. They just use the rotating movement component, which is a classic Unreal Engine component, and it rotates them. It's pretty fun, and you can play with the rotation rate. So if I wanted them to go in alternating directions, say, I could just set the rotation rate in reverse, and it would do that. So the coins Aaron was talking about before, you can place them individually. However, the coin spawner via PCG is a much more efficient way to do it, and it does a neat thing where when you pick up the first one, it spawns on all the other ones in a cute way. The fan is here. The lamp is here. The moving platform is here. Those are all very simple. Like, you can just drop a fan into your level, and it will do the thing. If you want to tune how the fan works, you open up the fan, all it really does is has a capsule that you enter, and it will start or stop the fan. If you want to play how the fan works, you can do that. It is not very complicated. All of these things are meant to be pretty simple. Moving platform is the same. If you want to play with how the platform follows the spline, you can, or you can just leave it as is. The key things for the platform, you can set its movement speed. You can tell it where you want it to start. So you tell it, you can offset the position a little bit. You can have it active, so it's already going. You can have it activate on touch, so it turns on when the player enters it, or you can make it an objective, as Aaron showed. And pause just determines the time before it actually starts moving, so you can catch up with it. Okay, so let's talk about the pickup spline for a second. Pickup spline is as simple as dropping in a pickup and then playing with the spline. So I'm going to just create this really ugly spline right here. And then if you want to set the distance between them, you can set it to 100. And what it'll do, it'll spawn in the first coin at the beginning of the spline. Once you touch that, the rest of them will spawn in, all via PCG. The portal that Aaron showed off, that's there. The pressure pad is here. And we have spawn pad. Steam vent is just a nice visual thing. And then we have our hazards, the conduit curved, and there's a base environmental hazard blueprint you can inherit from to set up things like that. So below that, we have PCG. So those cool, we drop one in. These are PCG, those cool biodome things. That's some nice PCG that Aaron built. And fun thing with those is they have multiple exit points. So if I click on exit point here and just drag it over, let me zoom in a little bit so I actually can see what I'm doing. If I put it here, it should, come on. There we go. It will, wherever you put the exit point, and there are 2 of them, you can basically tell it, this is where I want the entry point, this is where I want the exit point for my, or there's 1 of them, and then you can add more, just like that. So exit point 2, if I put it over here, it will add an exit point. It just tells the PCG system to not create PCG there. And they don't have to be on the floor, they can be in the roof. We do that, we have an exit through the roof thing. So as you are doing your level design, think vertically. You don't have to just do it horizontally. And you can have as many exits as you want. Next one I want to talk about briefly is the fence spline. So this is pretty nifty. I should drag this up a bit. I'm going to create the ugliest designer level in the world. So one thing with being Stackabot and hovering up in the clouds like this is that it's not so much worrying about the player falling off the platform, so that is a concern, but more if you're playing with physics objects, it's good to maybe stop them falling off. If the player needs them to do something, it can be kind of annoying if they drop them off the edge of the world. It's very easy to create a fence that does that. It again uses the spline and some PCG to do so, and then if you go, we've got some basic settings for the fence spline. It had settings. Oh yeah, so if you want to see the settings for the PCG, those click on the PCG component and then go down to parameter overrides, and they vary by PCG component that you can set. In this case, the post distance, which is how many posts do you have in your fence? the height offset 100. Suddenly it's hovering above the ground. So if you want to do some stuff to make the fence fit your environment better, and then curved end caps just makes them look a little different if you want something, and then have a cap only at the end, same as that. And you can do the same thing with these. So if you go to PCG and go down to parameter overrides, you can just set whether it uses exit points or not. In this case, because it's a blueprint, we can just do it here. So along those same lines, we have a bunch of other, we have the foliage topper, and we have the if you want to see how to do those rock islands, this is one of those rock islands. They come in really big. I blame society for that. We live in a world where people want huge things. So if you click on the PCG component and go to the parameter override, you can drop the spawn radius down to say 250 or 50, 15.
It's because the PCG default bounds volume is massive, or scale on it is massive. So you need to drop the PCG to a reasonable scale and a reasonable bounds.
Or make the world's biggest island. It's entirely up to you. But you can play with these parameter settings to create, the cool rock island that you want that matches your design. You'll notice that by default, they're kind of hollow. However, if you go back down to the PCG component, you can turn on a topper that is not currently scaling anything.
Set the scale to 1 on the PCG volume.
Yeah.
The actual scale of the actor.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Oh yeah, it's huge. There we go.
It gets deflated.
It's a bit massive. So let me go back down to this and play with this scale again. So that gets you something a little less ridiculous. You can set the spawn radius to be, say, 100, 250. That will add the topper to work nicely with that. You can turn the topper on or off. And that way, if you want a hollow one, you can have a hollow one. If you want one with the topper, it will have a topper. You can turn off the foliage if you don't want foliage. You can turn on rocks that appear underneath. These are mostly for aesthetics, but they look quite nice. The number basically determines how many rocks you get. You can play with the random seed and also subdivision, which is pretty useful. So that determines basically how many rocks you get. Don't set it to too high a number or you will crash the editor like I think I just did. No, I didn't. Good job, me. But yeah, so there's a lot of functionality within our PCG. Did I do it this time? Maybe I did it this time. That allows you to play with things. I'm going to stop live streaming when my editor catches up.
1 and 3, between 1 and 3 on the subdivisions.
Yeah, don't go too wild. Or it may break things. But yeah, so all our PCG is in there. Once I get my editor back, I can talk about the physics elements.
Playing a dangerous game is what happens.
Wait for your computer to recover from the insane number of subdivisions. Shall I talk about the materials?
Talk about materials, and then I'll talk about the physics stuff.
Cool. So we've tried to build the world in a way where it's quick and easy for you to make your own meshes and models. Obviously, you can use Fab and Fab's Fab. I don't know if anyone's made that joke. I'm sure they have. And we've got all of the Quixel assets as well that you can use in there. But they might not necessarily work compared to, well, aesthetically, in comparison to the StackoBot main character, who's quite stylized. So as part of this, we tried to build a way of you being able to make your own assets really quickly and easily. And one of the big points of contention for people who are kind of newish to game development is unwrapping. So to avoid that, we have built all of the materials in this project, or the vast majority of them, to be built assuming that you aren't going to have any UVs on the asset. So rather than do that, we've kind of come up with a way of kind of doing some dynamic smart material work instead. So you can kind of see on these assets here. Again, I'll go into an unlit mode so that you can kind of see it. We get this kind of like rust edging, and then this kind of like darkening around the interior of these shapes. And you also get some kind of like gradienting as well on the underside of the surface. So that's all done using I don't want to call it I don't know if I should call it a smart material. It's a smart-ish material. But basically,
Semi-smart.
the way that it works is that you build your model, kind of however you want, and the only thing that you kind of really need to do is just make sure that you put in a kind of a decent number of subdivisions on the asset. So this is a good example here. We've got this nice big pylon that you can kind of add in. So it's got these little cut-ins on here and these surfaces, and you can kind of see its model. It's kind of got a nice material on it. But the way that it works is that we basically bake the some information about the model into the vertex colors, and that information is then read by the smart material. It's really easy to do this because it's kind of built into the engine. All you need to do is go to the modeling mode once you've imported in your asset, go to bake vertex colors. Sorry, my view mode is not great here. And then you have a few different options. So you can choose to bake RGBA, and that gives you a bunch of different options to bake. You can even bake from a texture as well, which is really cool. So you could generate texture data and bring it in. But the best way to do it for this project is to just do per channel, set the R channel to curvature and the G channel to ambient occlusion. And then what that will do is it will basically generate an ambient occlusion map and a curvature map. We can kind of adjust the quality of this. So if we increase the occlusion rays to something a bit higher, we'll get a smoother output. And we can also change our color range multiplier to be a lower value, which will give us a sharper contrast on our curvature. And then what you'll see there is that as long as we've got enough geometry, as long as we have enough, vertex information in there, we will get ambient occlusion baked into that green channel. So you can kind of see it on here. And we'll get on our red channel, we'll get our curvature put in. We can see this if we set all of the channels to curvature. You can kind of see the channel that we'll get. So our curvature will be this on our red channel. And if I switch all of them over to ambient occlusion, you'll be able to see the ambient occlusion generation on that. We get all of our AO generated through there. And because the reality is that, kind of when you're doing, when you're doing your texture work inside something like Substance Painter, this is a lot of the base information that it uses to figure out how it should render the textures and the materials and how you layer that surface up. So as long as you've got kind of the normals, the surface location, the ambient occlusion, the curvature, and things like that, you can figure out a lot of that stuff just automatically. So we've got this system in place. So if you bake that data in and then use the smart material that we've provided, so I'll just undo this because it's already got it on. Then the smart material will do the rest. And I will show you the smart material. So we've done a couple of different ones. We've got a painted, kind of like pseudo plasticky, kind of like high gloss paint that covers the surface. We've done a couple of different color variants as well. And then we've also got a metal on top of that. So you can kind of blend between these two. So these are the smart materials. They all inherit from the same base material, and that base material is storing all of the information inside a material function. Now, if you don't care about any of this, all you need to do is take the M smart material, right-click, and make a new material instance, and you can basically put in all of the information into here. So if all you care about is kind of like adjusting the texture information, then this is all you need. We've created some base information. So you've got a base texture. All of this by default is locally aligned material. So again, it's not expecting this thing to be UV'd. It will project whatever texture you put into the albedo and the normal on this asset just on its own. So we can take our normal map, We can find, kind of any normal map we have. I'm going to take this bark material, and it'll just do a world-aligned application of that. And then we've got a bunch of parameters on this to kind of control the strength of that particular normal map. So can kind of tune that as we want. We also have in our UVs, we've got a scale for that. So you can go in and say, I want this to be 2048 or 12 or smaller for that surface. And then we've added some extra functionality as well. So you've also got, kind of like a detail normal if you want to have an additional normal on top of that surface. You can tint your color. So if you've got like a base color in here, you can go in and do some color modification. So you can kind of tweak it to get it looking how you want. And then on the surfaces, you can choose to use the masks for this texture. So by default, they're all off, but if you turn any of them on, then you'll get the mask information and you can go in and apply a mask to that. And if you don't want to use the mask, you can also just set these values directly. So you can say, I just want this to be metal and I want it to have a roughness of 0.2 or something like that, and it will set that as a hard value. But if you do want to have a texture, you just enable that and then you set the channel that you want. Again, we've got examples of this on all of the material instances, so you can use that as a reference point. And then on top of that, we've got some. So that's kind of like the base of the material. You apply textures or set values. Or do a hybrid of the two. But then it gets a bit smarter on top of that. So we can do our angle tint on top, which is basically allows you to apply a black color at a certain level of density, so we can kind of increase the strength of this on top of that surface. So this is really useful if you wanted to do sun bleaching. So things that sit in the sun for a really long time tend to get kind of like discolored from the sunlight, so you can use it for that. You can use it for kind of like rust accumulation for like the underside of things as they get a bit dirtier or things like that. Or you can turn it off and not use it at all. You can also mix in or control how the metal or roughness will change based on that angle as well. We have an edge wear, which again is using that curvature and ambient occlusion to give you a rough edge wear. And same with grunge as well, which uses the ambient occlusion to figure out where the dirt would accumulate and build up, and allow you to modify the color, roughness, and metal and normal of those surfaces as you apply them. Again, we've got good examples of this in all of those textures. And then we've also got a noise texture as well, which you can use to kind of control how that surface blends. So a good example of this is on our rock material. So I'll just try and get my screen, myself a bit more screen real estate on this. So you can kind of see our rocks here. And again, if I go in unlit mode, you can see that they've got all of this kind of like gradient information. You can see all of that kind of like edge damage, curvature information in there. None of that's textured. It's all just implicit from the material. And if we go in, I think should have an instance that I can use for this one. Let's do mi rock. Find where that material has gone off to. So this is my kind of rock material setup. And we've done it slightly differently with this one. So this is another good point, actually. All of the smart functionality that we've made, we've stored as functions. So you can just use that smart material as a base if you want to, and it's got all of the functionality in it. Or you can just kind of cherry pick the bits that you want. So in this instance, the rock material, we wanted to do something slightly different. So we built the base material, but then we still wanted the grunge and edge wear. So we just added that functionality in there as well. But yeah, you can kind of see it a bit better in action here. So if we go into our edge wear, you can kind of see all the different parameters that we've got in here. And then we've got this kind of blend control, so you can kind of see you can make it, kind of non-existent, or you can make it really, really strong. You kind of control the power of that as well, so you can really kind of like tweak it to get it how you want it, and then you can even change the color of that tint as well. So if you want like the edgeware to have like a pink color or something like that for some reason, then you can put that in there. And then same with grunge as well. So grunge has its own tint color as well. So if you actually wanted to put like some grass or something in there, you could have kind of like a bit of a yellower, greener kind of build up on the surface. And then again, we've got the blend controls in there if you wanted to make it a bit harsher or a bit more colourful. I dread to think what this looks like in lit mode, but
Looks stunning.
Yeah,
Well, you know
Beautiful.
what?
it kind of works.
It's not that
so you
bad.
can- yeah,
No.
so you can kind of do stuff like that, and then we've also got the noise blend scale on top of that as well. So if you kind of have quite a sharp power, you can kind of see that it's not actually just a gradiented blend. We're mixing that ambient occlusion and curvature with some noise, which again you can kind of modify and tweak, so you can kind of make that shape a bit more granular, or you can make it a bit bigger.
So
as
your
well.
level does not have to look like our level. It can look. You can use all of these wonderful things Aaron built to make something that looks entirely different.
Yeah, and you can even switch the noise as well. So if you make your own noise, you can get some cool effects in there. So you can create some quite nice patterning in there if you want to for that. So if we did like I do not want to see engine content. Let's just do no underscore n. Give me the UE logo, I guess, or something like that. We could probably
We've definitely not abused that.
I might be
enough in
using that
Stack
too much
Overflow.
at this point, yeah. But yeah, so you can go in, you can kind of like really modify that stuff. It just, this is not a perfect solution by any means. But what it does give you is a really, really quick starting point. So you can go in, you can kit bash a ton of stuff, kind of like in Blender or Maya or Max or whatever. You can drop it into here. You can apply a couple of different materials to it. And as long as you've got that, you've baked that information in using the steps I've shown you, it'll just give you a really quick, material that you can use that's a bit better than just having a basic material. And what's quite nice about this as well is that this works across all of the assets, right? So because we're not having to generate a unique material for every single thing and bring in its own textures, because it's all based on the vertex colors of the asset, you can just apply it to one thing and it will just work on everything. So we can do it to like this metal, for example, and all of the metal is going to get updated with this. So if we take in angle tint and we decide that actually we want it to have like I'll go with pink again, pink underside for some reason, we can put that in there. We can change the tint direction as well. So let's say we want it to be a positive value rather than a negative. We can do that. And we can even say that we actually don't want the tint to be metal once it gets to the top, so you can kind of knock out some of the metal value and increase some of the roughness value or decrease some of the roughness value to make it
It's a nifty rust kind of effect.
yeah, more unique. And you can do the same with the kind of the edgeware and the grunge as well. So if you don't want it to be rusty, you can just set it to be like maybe like a white color or something like that, and then have it so that the on the edgeware blend we can kind of increase the strength of that value. So you kind of get a much lighter, harsher edge on that surface. You kind of
More
see
tech art magic right there.
yeah, I mean the values you can knock past the point where they break, so it is you do have to kind of tune it a little bit and kind of find those nice values in there. But I've tried to expose just some some base content in there to make it a bit easier. We've also got rainwear in there as well, so this shows up best on the concrete if we go into one of these instances. And let's have a look at the plastic. Actually, the paint works quite nicely. So let's do this one. If we kind of look at this surface here.
I love the paint material. was my favorite one to just throw on things.
I'll just adjust the rainwear slider off screen just so you can kind of see you can see it without it breaking everything. But if we go in our rainwear, you can kind of see that you can kind of just you can go in, you can turn it off completely, but the rainwear strength will basically just override the roughness of the surface with its own value. And what's quite nice about the rainwear as well is that it changes the texture that it uses based on the angle of the surface. So if the surface is sheer, so if it's a glancing angle, it will use a streak. And if the surface is kind of like facing upwards, it switches to kind of like more of these little dots to kind of simulate that kind of like that rain spatter that you can kind of get on those surfaces. So just allows you to kind of just trying to give you something that allows you to get a bit more out of the surfaces. And I've completely ruined this level now by messing with these materials.
It looks beautiful. I don't know what you're talking about.
So you can kind of go in there and you can tweak all sorts of those. So we've got a concrete, a metal, and a plastic as kind of like a starting point. And then there's the rock base material in there that you can throw on anything as well. And hopefully that gives you a good starting point, and then you can go and you can augment them and make your own material variations based on that. And hopefully that's helpful.
So I'm back up and running again. If I can run through the rest of our toys and hopefully not crash my machine again. Let's see. You live on the edge.
Believe.
It's good that you believe in me. Also, credit to my dog who keeps barking in the background. Say hi, Calvin. Okay.
Our special guest.
A special guest, Calvin, the nervous dog. So there's a question that I want to answer in a second, but first, the one bit of PCG I didn't really get to is there is one with the kind of unassuming name of grid spawn, which when you drop in looks a bit weird, but if you adjust the scale a little bit, it turns into a platform. Most of these platforms are actually also PCG. PCG doesn't just mean random scattering of stuff. It can also mean rules that define the placement of geometry. So in this case, I just dropped in one of these PCG grid spawns, and then I scaled it and created this giant platform here. Now, if I wanted to modify it, I can just scale it down a bit. If it gets a bit weird looking, you can clean up and generate like that, and it will regenerate itself so it looks properly. There are obviously limits to that, to how far it can go, but you can. Like, you can break it if you put it at too extreme an angle, but you can play with its rotation, you can play with its positioning, you can do a lot. So when you're laying stuff out, you can also use the grid spawn to create these nice sort of beveled edge platforms. And then you could say drop our icospheres on top of it, and that's the wrong one. Suddenly, hey, look, you're laying out a level.
You've made me doubt myself now, but I swear those things worked at an angle. I think you just
They do sometimes. I just, me, I only use huge numbers because I'm a designer. I'm like, everything's out of 1,000.
I think you just have to regenerate the PCG graph.
Yeah, it gets a bit sensitive at when you rotate them beyond a certain thing, but yeah, it's like it gets a little sensitive on the Y, but on the Z, it is great. You can do whatever with it. So if you want to lay out spaces and you need something that isn't a big rock island, you can do that. So next, that was the last thing I was going to show on PCG. So the next thing is just going through our various physics toys. So we've got the balance bar, which comes with its own nifty bit of PCG that drops into the ground so it can be hidden in the clouds because it justifies its existence. If you look at how it's set up, it's just a beam with a physics constraint. And you can tweak how the physics constraint works, but it basically, almost all of our physics things work like that. So the floating platforms are the same. Just got a physics constraint that hooks into it, so it holds it in place and lets it bounce within a certain angle. So those are our floating platforms. We have a small one and a big one, and you can lay them out however you want. Then beyond that, we have like the stackable platform is just a blueprint containing some nifty beveled cylinders and a nav modifier because you want them to not you want them to block NPCs if they're walking around. Basically, things like our crates and our these stacky platforms, things like that, they have nav modifiers in them to tell NPCs to not try and walk through them. We are not doing a dynamic nav mesh because that could be have performance implications. We are doing a static nav mesh with nav modifiers. And I recommend sticking with that unless you have a good reason not to. So the spinning thing that Aaron showed off earlier, that's this. If you want to create variancy of this is all pretty simple. It's just a rotating movement component with a physics constraint and a sphere that activates it when you enter that sphere. If you want to create something like that, these are all very simple if you open them up. Here is the setup. Sets up the physics constraint. All I want are physics constraints that are set up like this so you know what they're connected to. And then if they hit the player, they use launch character to launch them away. And this is the component begin overlap. Showing which it activates the rotating movement component. So if you want it rotating from the beginning, you don't need to do this. You'll just set it up to activate, which is in here somewhere on start. But otherwise, you can just call activate on them when you want them to run. And if you want to stop them, you can call deactivate on them, same thing. So if I switch back to the main Stacko level, for a second, bear with me while I load that in. You'll see that I want to talk about our grabbable stuff for a second. So let's go over here and look at these grabbable crates. These are just static mesh crate. And what that is a blueprint with a static mesh and a nav modifier. And to make them grabbable, all you do is you go down and set an actor tag that says grab, all capitals. Grab, and that means as long as you want to make sure that they're actually movable. If you're just dropping a static mesh in, you want it to actually be set to be movable right here, so you can read it. Movable right there. Don't set it as static or stationary, or StackoBot will try and grab it and it won't move. And then if you go back to the character blueprint bot, Aaron wrote this really nifty grab logic. Drag that back across here, that you can see how that works. What that does is it uses a physics handle with some constraints set. And let's see, where did the grab logic go? Here it is. So grabbable items runs on the tick. Contrary to what people on YouTube may tell you, you can run stuff on the tick, just don't do everything on tick. And what that does is on tick, it does something called a grab check, where it does a line trace out and sees if it hits something. And if it does hit something, if it has the actor tag grab, it brings up the appropriate UI. If there's no successful trace, it hides it. And that brings up the UI queue. And then from there, you can go down. All the grab stuff is under grab here. Grab update, then grab init is the thing that does the actual connection to the physics handle. So grab component location with rotation using the physics handle. And this spawns the VFX for it. But basically all it's doing is telling the physics handle, grab this thing at this position, rotation, and then we want to once that's going, we've got sound effect, we've got the Niagara, it calls grab update. And what grab update does, this runs on the tick, and based on the actor's position, meaning the camera, because we basically move it with the camera versus the pawn, it updates character movement a little bit, and it interpolates the physics handle with the object so it hovers above and around you as you move. It's all pretty simple. If you want to modify how that works, that's also pretty easy to do. You can just go in and play with the settings as you see fit. So I saw a question about that. I thought it would be good to answer. At this point, I will stop screen sharing again. Ooh. And I think that covers most of the toys that we have in there. If you want to create more of them, you can create more floating platforms. You can modify if they float. You can play with the physics constraints. I would warn you that Unreal's physics system is a little bit sensitive. So don't do what I do and throw in huge numbers. You want to tweak the physics values relatively simply, because otherwise you're going to have things that like launch you off when you land on them or get very angry when you put a physics object on top of them. But we have done things like put crates on floating platforms and allowed them to be grabbable. So all of that stuff does play nicely with each other, but you do want to do some playtesting to make sure that you're not creating something that's actually hard for the player to navigate. We did a lot of tuning on the physics to get it to that point. So, Aaron, what else do we want to talk about? We've got like 15 minutes left.
Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything. The only thing I did want to say is that the StackoBot sample, like I said, we've completely redone it, but we're currently sitting on our old rating system. We didn't feel like it would be appropriate for us to just wipe our own reviews clean, even though the sample is technically completely unchanged. So I would say if you have a minute and you like the StackoBot sample, then please go and rate it on Fab. So that we can get a more accurate rating than what we currently have. It's already jumped up quite a lot since we released it like 2 days ago, and it went from 3.2 to 3.7. So we're already getting more positive reviews on there. But I think if you do get a minute and you like the sample, then go on Fab and give it a review so that we can get a better view on the sample.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, if that's the case, then we've got a couple of questions that I figure we can go through real quick. And then I've been seeing a lot of questions about the submissions and some of the wanting a little bit more guidance around what exactly it is that we're expecting from the submission. So I'll go through like the full official list, but want to make sure I get to the questions that we have first. So the first one, and Aaron, Sam, you might know this off the top of your head. If not, I can probably find it from the Fab listing. But do you know the size of the StackoBot game when packaged? Just because there are some limitations to the size of submissions that you can put on itch. There are some ways around that, which I'll go over in a second. But do either of you happen to know the size of the package sample?
Give me a sec.
No, time's up.
Just under a gig.
Okay. That is good to know. So yeah, in that case, if it's just under a gigabyte, it does have a limit of 1 GB. So there's a couple things that you can do for this. It probably won't affect most projects. I can't imagine that you're going to be using everything that's in the sample for your submissions as well. But even if you did, if you go to our itch page for the jam, we have a section that is specifically addressed to compression and ways to handle it. If your file is more than 1 GB, you can actually utilize the Butler tool to upload your files to itch. We link out to a section that comments a little bit more on what that is and how to utilize it. You can also check out the Blendo Itch Uploader, which is a GUI for uploading projects to itch.io as well. So just keep that in mind. Keep when you're getting your stuff ready to get packaged and submitted. Then
the Unreal project is a gig. The base Unreal project. If it's a fully packaged shipping build, which is what you'd want, you don't want to do it in development because that includes a bunch of other stuff. But if you do a shipping package of it, it's like 500 meg or 400 meg or something like that.
It strips out a lot of engine content that you otherwise would get. So yeah, it should be relatively efficient. Generally, you're probably not, unless you add a lot of custom assets that are very, huge materials, things like that, you're probably not going to balloon it much past that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's all of Tina's advice on uploading larger projects still counts. Just, tread carefully as you build. And what I recommend in general as good development practice is to package on a regular basis, because if you're just playing an editor, it is not entirely one-to-one with a packaged game. It is good to make sure that your packaged version works well, so you're not scrambling at the last minute going, oh no, it's delayed and packaged. And if you need any help with that, just post it on the forums, on the Discord, and some nice person, possibly one of us, will come help you.
And if you package it for Android as well, which you can also do, it strips out a bunch of other stuff, so it will reduce the texture sizes and things like that. So you'll get a smaller package by about half, I think, for the Android build.
You'll get on nifty touch controls.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, I really can't imagine that most submissions, if any, that might be a bold statement, but I can't imagine that most would be really struggling with that threshold. But in case you
I
are,
wouldn't make
we
that
do have some stuff
assumption.
there.
I'm expecting like
People can
4K
fill a gig
textures.
really easily.
It's good. You just need a couple Quixel assets and a 4K texture, and suddenly you're huge. But please tread carefully, just in the interests of everyone's internet bandwidth.
Yes. Awesome. And then, yeah, there were some more questions around the theme in general and how much you can modify gameplay, all that kind of stuff. The theme is Stackobot. So really, it's as long as you utilize the sample project in some way, you've met the theme. Other than that, we truly just want you to go wild, get really creative with it. You can modify the gameplay as much as you want. You can add on as much gameplay as you want. There's no limits outside of, well, I guess the very literal limit of size, plus time as well. The final day of the jam is August 21st, so make sure you're keeping that deadline in mind as you're making stuff. But otherwise, just go crazy. Do whatever you want. Do something wild, do something different. Make your level as similar to Stackobot in its current form as it is as you want, with just adding things on, or you can make something that is completely, totally different in every conceivable way. Both are acceptable ways to approach this jam and this challenge. I did see a couple questions about the character and if you can swap out our adorable bot. I'm not sure. Does bot have a name? I think it's just Stackobot.
He's Stackobot.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's Stackobot is his last name. I don't know. Doesn't have a gender really. Their last name. But yeah,
Laybot. Yes.
Laybot. But yeah, if you want to make a Stackobot dating sim, I mean, go for it. I would definitely play that.
But yeah, you can add in characters. You can also replace Laybot with a different character if you would like to as well, although they are adorable. So I would be saddened to a degree, but also impressed all the same. Point is, again, just as long as you're utilizing the sample, then that's all you need to do. And you're within grounds to go wild outside of that. Next question here is, can we use other assets or is it only the assets that are provided in the sample? You can use additional assets besides what's available to you in Stackobot as well, but you need to credit them. In the actual submission form, when you go to submit, there is going to be a field that is specifically for crediting what assets have been used in your project. As long as you post the sellers and the makers of the assets in there, you are fine to do so. Let's see. A lot of these y'all just kind of answered as you were going through because you're rock stars. Is Stackobot just Manny in a funny hat?
He
a great
allegedly.
They've never been seen in the same place.
Yeah, we don't know.
We can neither confirm nor deny.
Manny is a private individual who leads a
true.
private life, and we don't want to intrude.
What Manny does in Manny's spare time is Manny's business, frankly. Great. Well, with all that, I figure now I'll go through the submission guidelines exactly as they're written fully in the rules. You can always come back to this, and this is available on the itch page as well in the full version of the rules, but I figured I'd walk through it in case that helps clarify some questions that y'all might have had. So first is online submissions only. As genuinely cool as it would be to get a physical copy of your game you make mailed in, that does actually sound really cool. It unfortunately would not count as a submission, but it would be sick. So online submissions only. Submissions must be the work of an individual, no group submissions permitted. Again, this is only for solo makers. Our other jams, like the Mega Jam, we do allow groups, but for this one, it is just for individuals. Submissions may not be made using generative AI, ML, or LLMs, or any other similar technology. Submissions must be packaged for Windows and playable on Windows 8, 10, or 11, Mac OS X, Android, iOS, or Oculus Mobile. Submissions may not contain default sample assets unchanged outside of the StackoBot 2.0 sample. Submissions must be submitted according to the How to Enter section and directly accessible by us and any other person from the link that you provided. Submissions must be accompanied by a video of the gameplay as well. The resolution of the video must match 1920 by 1080 or higher. Video length must be between 30 to 60 seconds long. Submissions must not be an obvious extension of one of our official Unreal Engine tutorials. Submissions should not require any additional software to run. Submissions may include sourced, as in non-original assets, but the source assets must be credited. Like I said, there will be a field for that in the submission form when you're finalizing that. Submissions must demonstrate use of the contest theme in an obvious way. Again, contest theme being StackoBot. So as long as you're utilizing the sample project, then you're fine there. Submissions must not contain personal attacks on anyone or any discernible product, including competitor products. Submissions may not depict nudity, animal cruelty, any illegal activity or substance, or any other offensive or obscene subject matter as determined in our sole discretion as Epic. Submissions shall not portray Epic in a negative light. Please don't make a submission that's just mean. Please and thank you. The submissions must be appropriate for a teen audience, and the submissions may not feature any trademarks, including logos, except the Unreal Engine logo, as described by our branding guidelines, which you can find. So hopefully that clears up any questions or stuff that you may have had going through. Again, that list is also available on the full official rules, which I highly recommend you make sure to read all the way through, just so you know all the details that you need to. But otherwise, I think that should cover pretty much everything. So, thank you, Aaron and Sam, for taking the time to walk through the sample project with us. And thank you, everybody, for being here and hopefully for participating in the jam. We are so excited to get back in the swing of hosting jams, and we're really, really excited to see what you all come up with. There's a couple quick shout outs I want to make sure that I do. I want to say a big, huge thank you to Sky and Jessica. They were both absolutely integral to getting this jam up and running and going. Wonderful, incredible people. We literally could not have done this without them. So a big thank you to both of them. Wish we could have had them here on stream, but with certain circumstances, sometimes it just can't happen, but wanted to make sure they get their love and their shout out all the same. And then I also want to just give a quick shout out to Dan, our man behind the curtain, and this real fancy stinger that you may have seen on the stream happening. That one right there, it's new and he made it and it's impressive. Thanks for doing that, Dan. Otherwise, if anyone popped in to the stream partway through and you missed some stuff or you want to go back and review it, you can do so because we post all of our streams in video format that can be viewed on demand on both our Twitch and YouTube channel at Unreal Engine. You can also keep up with us at Unreal Engine on all of our social medias to keep up with the latest news, updates, and all that kind of good stuff. And then last but certainly not least, if you haven't already, I highly recommend that you come join us on the Epic developer community, which is where we have our documentation, we have tutorials made by both Epic staff and wonderful members of our community, plus our forums and pretty much anything you could need in regards to the engine and most of our other products as well. So come hang out there. We also have a thread going on the forums that is specifically for this jam. So in case you have questions or concerns or things that come up in the meantime, you can post them on there and we'll get back to you and let you know. Otherwise, like I said, we'll be doing a couple of other things around the jam over this coming week. We'll be chatting with Aaron on Monday and we'll be chatting with Sam on Wednesday in the Epic for Indies Discord server. So I'll make sure that we get a link posted for that server up in here too. If you want feedback or tips, all that kind of good stuff, you can come hang out with us around then. But other than that, I think that's it. So thank you so much one last time to Aaron and Sam for being here and walking us through this stuff. Appreciate you time. Appreciate you all for being here. Wouldn't be what it is without you and your participation. And I look forward to seeing what you all make. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.